minutes remain. After 20 minutes, the presentation will be stopped immediately and no information will be considered afterwards. Following your presentation, there will be 10 minutes of question and answer. You will be given a warning when 2 minutes remain and no information will be considered once that time has passed. You may begin when you're ready.
Hello everyone, we are Team Yankee and we'll be walking you through our thought process on how we came up with a solution for Edward Jones. My name is Salome.
I'm Carla.
I'm Max.
And I'm Cedric.
Now I'm going to pass the baton to Carla so she can explain how we came up with our solution.
Thank you, Solomon. So Edward Jones is a financial advisory company that serves clients who are making investments. One of their most unique value propositions is the way that they serve clients through developing personal relationships. Jim Weddle really exemplifies this part of Edward Jones' company culture when he said, "We feel like the relationship that the financial advisor delivers on is the way we compete." So just to talk a little bit about the current background, in the United States, there's a large transfer of wealth that's taking place right now. About $30 trillion are being transferred from the baby boomer generation to millennials. Also, there's a large change taking place in US demographics. As we read in the case and researched on our own, we saw that there's a large increase of Asian Americans and Hispanics in the United States. And despite this fact, in our analysis, we are focusing primarily on the millennial segment because that's the segment of people that we believe is most likely affecting the financial services industry. I'm going to hand it over to Cedric now. He's going to talk a little bit about the challenges that Edward Jones is currently facing.
Thank you so much, Carla. I won't immediately go into the challenges that Edward Jones is facing. I will focus first on the industry. The industry itself is facing this issue of people having, the new generation having different attitudes towards investing. The millennials want have a certain amount of control over the investments they make. They want to have things happening in the background without them thinking about it. They're not these people who are willing to travel and book an appointment and go and meet someone and have a certain conversation with them about their finances. On the contrary, the baby boomers are more advisory, financial advisor-led. They want to sit with someone collaborate with someone, give them ideas and interchange and actually come up with a solution. So catering to these two different segments, it presents a challenge itself. And here in our group, we're going to bring certain solutions, and we're going to tell you which one is more appealing and actually can get us to where Edward Jones can prepare itself to meet this clientele that will be coming in the next coming years. But also, there is also a challenge that comes with the online presence. There is online presence from Edward Jones, and we really recognize that. There is a problem of not having this online presence that is more millennial friendly, like where the kind of technology we enjoy using. If you look at the apps of different other competitors in the industry, like Charles Schwab or Bank of America, when you want to log into your account, you just use your Touch ID. Then you are already in your account. But on the side of Edward Jones, you still need to put in your user ID and the password. And this delays the process. And we've seen that this can make someone alter their choices in who they're going to go forward with. So we think this presents a real challenge, and we have a solution to that. Going forward with how we're gonna push this, we're gonna first tackle every piece of the question that we have. How can you identify? How can we serve? How can you engage the millennials? And how can we return them on the long run by the time they be already ripping to start doing investment? They will be already in the hands of Edward Jones serving them. So we're gonna find a solution, and the first solution to that, I'm gonna hand it to Max. He's gonna be telling you how we can serve them.
Thank you, Cedric. So the first solution that we came up with was, after looking at a variety of possible acquisitions that Edward Jones is not usually known for. They don't usually grow through acquisitions, but we were looking at different apps, and the one that we decided would be the best option for Edward Jones to acquire was Acorns. So the way Acorns works is if you buy, for example, a coffee for $2.60, the 40 cents of change is rounded up and is automatically moved to your savings/investing account. This is called micro-investing. This is something that millennials have been very engaged with. They have over 1,500,000 users, and 75% of those users are between the ages of 18 to 34. Additionally, we think that using Acorns as a platform to engage and grow the brand name of Edward Jones, for example, by rebranding it into Acorns by Edward Jones, is a good alternative to building something from the ground up. And as for a time frame, we look at a time frame of approximately 1 year to complete the acquisition, after which it would take about 3 years to complete the rebranding process. At this time, the average age of a millennial would be about 35, which is when most people in our generation start considering financial advisors and looking to financial advisors for help, for buying a house, for major purchases, things like that. It seems like our generation takes about 5 extra years to grow into that mature financial literacy. So looking at why we chose Acorns, they have relatively few assets under management. They have 73 million in assets under management. But the reason we chose Acorns was because of the valuation. Compared to some of the other ones, Acorns is actually valued at, it was valued in September of 2016 at 370 million. And we believe that it would be possible to acquire them for $600 million. Looking at the balance sheet of Edward Jones, we saw that there were about $1 billion available in cash and cash equivalents. And we decided that due to this, the funding for that acquisition would go 75% through cash and 25% through debt. So that would put $400 million of the $1 billion in cash and $200 million in debt. Additionally, we were looking at what would be the benefits and the limitations of making this acquisition. So the main benefit would be associating Edward Jones with a brand that millennials are growing accustomed to. A lot of millennials are using this app, and while they aren't right now at that time in their lives where they want to sit down with a financial advisor, this is something that they can do, like Cedric mentioned, without having to be over-involved, since Acorns makes those investments for you. Essentially, you get a choice of whether you want to be moderately investing or aggressively investing. You have, I think, 3 choices, and those can be changed. But it takes away from that hyper-controlling aspect of, let me be very involved with what investments are made. And additionally, we were looking at how millennials spend and save. And it was determined by a Deloitte study, actually, that millennials would rather put $5 aside every day for 30 days than put $150 aside, even though in the end it comes out to the same amount. So this is why micro-investing is interesting for millennials, because they don't notice the 20 cents, the 40 cents that are rounded off of every purchase. Additionally, Edward Jones would have access to that data that Acorns is growing. What are millennials spending? Where are they spending? What is their total spending? This leads to having data on possible clients for Edward Jones. So in the future, if, for example, when our generation reaches that 35 years old, when they have assets that they could be investing, they will be able to, financial advisors would be able to reach out specifically to targeted clients. Say, okay, we can see that this guy is spending $5,000 a month, $8,000 a month, $10,000 a month. This would be a person that's right for us to attract and could convert into a lead for financial advisors. Additionally, you have their information, you have their age, you have their zip code, so it could be very targeted and it could create a lot of relationships that way, and leading to the use of financial advisors. Some of the limitations that we considered were obviously the incorporation of a fintech startup such as Acorns into the very traditional culture of Edward Jones, which is why we considered that the rebranding would be ideal, because this means that the brand name of Edward Jones is put in the face of millennials and they start to recognize that name after using the app. But at the same time, you don't have to merge the 2 companies right away. So you have those 3-4 years where Acorns is acting by itself. The conversion, like I mentioned, could be a more difficult process in terms of targeting the right clients and targeting the right people to convert. And finally, the financial cost, like I mentioned, is $600 million, not a small acquisition, so that would have to be considered as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Max. So we're going to go into the social media. So the idea is we've looked at Edward Jones' current social media, and a lot more members of our generation are going online on Facebook and realize that Edward Jones has about 400,000 likes, but not a lot of engagement on its Facebook page. And we felt like, since the world is moving towards that direction, Edward Jones should revamp its Facebook page to get more engagement. But right now I'm going to focus on Acons by Edward Jones because I think it's a very interesting project that we're going into. So what we're planning to do is have a mass social media strategy on Facebook. The idea behind it is two-pronged. There will be an artificial intelligence chat robot that could talk to you through your financial planning. And the other idea is to have Acons start having financial literacy content up on their social media page that is either funneled through Edward Jones or has association with Edward Jones. So that when customers are young enough, they start knowing about Edward Jones. So we created a simulation from May 1st to May 31st of looking at how much it would cost us to create this kind of campaign. So it's $6,000 per month. We get about 12 billion impressions, that is people interacting with our page, and that would be 5 billion people that we try to reach out. And the cool thing about Facebook is there's a lot of targeted marketing. So you can filter and choose who you want to market to. So you can market to different demographics. In addition to that, we've all done a marketing class where we've actually analyzed our Facebook page and our Facebook information. And the data you get is insightful. You know which people are looking at your stuff, where they're looking at it, what time, what age range, and that's the kind of data that Edward Jones needs to start getting. So moving on more to our artificial intelligence chatbot. I don't know if you've called the Bank of America hotline, where the lady is absolutely sassy, absolutely has so much attitude, but she's amazing. She answers your questions and she understands you. And even though she's not real, she's artificial intelligence, she still gets the job done. So I think that's a very fascinating route that Edward Jones could definitely take. In addition to looking at all of this, the high benefits of Facebook, we looked at a startup called Robinhood that is already in the fintech space, having a lot of young customers in their target pool. And one of their posts was 99 problems, but commissions ain't one. So you can clearly see that financial advising can be hip and fun and apply millennials in order for them to become long-term users of Edward Jones in the future. So the benefits to this, it appeals to a diverse demographic. I mean, targeted Facebook ads, I've already mentioned, you can be very, very specific, and you can use the data that you get to understand your own customers. Obviously, you're going to acquire a younger user base. Most of us have a Facebook account, so that's already in that demographic. And it's pretty cool to incorporate AI robots because that is the future. And in line with this, it builds relationships with the customers. And as much as people feel like Facebook is a remover of making relationships, I found that keeping my relationships with friends has been more emphasized now that I have Facebook. Facebook has actually created this connection. And there will be a value proposition in having a robot on the other end of the line because millennials definitely want to be able to talk to someone and ask them any question at any point at any time. So that could even be 2 a.m. and that robot would certainly be useful for that. The limitations are there's obviously recurring monthly startup costs after the campaign is launched. There is the limitation of the engagement of customers as well, and we're not sure if it's going to convert, if the customers that we have now will convert to using Edward Jones in the long run. The idea of the rollout strategy would be about a month to 3 months to inform the marketing team in order for them to see if this is possible and hire an independent creative social development organization to work on this project. I'll pass it on to Cedric to tell you how we came up with a solution and rolled out other solutions that we have.
Thank you so much, Salome. Getting to settle and say, let's acquire Acons was not an easy process. We considered other alternatives. One of them included acquiring Robinhood. Robinhood is another fintech, more targeted to the right audience that we are going to, but this one are more, it's more specific to a certain audience of millennials who have certain background knowledge or about financial markets. Myself, I tried it and lost almost everything I had because I didn't have enough knowledge. So I don't think this is a good recommendation to the people that you're trying to get because at the end of the day, they come for financial advisory because they need it. So this one assumes that you already have that financial knowledge. And we think, we even look at the cost of actually having Robinhood. It's really, really high, almost 1 billion. And given the data we had about Edward Jones' balance sheet, we didn't think it's a good move going forward. We also considered having the college debt software. This is another line of product that links to the people graduating from college with an average of 30,000 US dollars in debt. These people really need financial advice. They really need a way of paying off that debt as soon as possible in a more formulated way. So we think it will be a good idea of having that link between Edward Jones and these people who are coming out of college. But the problem is, this requires a new financial infrastructure. This requires going and acquire new clients. And we thought if we tap into the already existing user base of Acorns, it's going to spear us ahead faster, and we're going to have really good substantial data that will help us make good decisions. I'll pass back to Salome to continue with other alternatives that we thought about.
So we also thought about creating a subsidiary of Edward Jones catered to millennials, like same product offerings like Edward Jones Lite, something that would appeal to us without lingo, that sort of thing. But we thought about it, and there's already the infrastructure that is provided by the current Edward Jones organization, and creating a subsidiary would require substantially more assets, and we don't have a user base already for that. So we felt like if we acquire something that already had a user base, then there was no need to have to test it out and see if we'll acquire the user base. Also, we thought of hiring a diverse workforce to anticipate the needs of the future. But Edward Jones already has a lot of great diversity and inclusion programs, and they already have an internship pool, because one of the big issues is whether or not there will be financial advisors in the future that meet the demand of the industry. So there was that, and one of the things we've also realized is the idea of wealth transfer, because if someone's parents own a certain account, when that wealth transfers, the odds of them changing the financial advisors are very limited, because they don't have a lot of knowledge in the industry. They trust that their parents have taken care of the entire process. So that was also one of the things that we acknowledged. We acknowledged that Edward Jones is doing a lot in that direction, and obviously it can be improved, but we certainly did not want to go this route because we wanted to focus on the other solution. I'll pass it on to Carla to show you how we've answered the question.
Thank you so much. So Edward Jones can identify customers by looking at data that comes from Acorns and obtaining new customers that way. It can attract new customers in the millennial group, because millennials will find Acorns to be very user-friendly and their style of communication. It will engage customers because the app itself is very engaging and useful for millennials. It will serve them by giving them something that will help them to become more educated on investing and finances. And finally, it will retain these customers, because our hope is that millennials will become loyal to Edward Jones through using this app, Acorns, that's affiliated with them, and through the Facebook pages, which will help them with investment advice. Thank you for your time, and we'd now like to answer any questions that you have.
So on the Acorn app idea, very interesting idea. I was kind of curious though, as I was looking at it and thinking about the cost, it's $600 million, right? It's a lot of money. Potentially, maybe more, right? Could we build it cheap and market it to our roughly 7 million households that we already serve, and to maybe some of the heirs of those accounts, and sort of build it that way instead of buying something?
Thank you so much for the question. I'll pass it to Carla.
So I think that Acorns, technically, we could build something cheaper, perhaps, but one of the advantages of actually just acquiring Acorns is that it already has a really wide customer base. Max, would you like to add anything else to that?
Yeah, so actually Acorns, one of the things that attracted us to it was its very young user base. The problem with Edward Jones building its own is, again, the problem that Edward Jones is not as in touch with the millennial generation, while Acorns, 75% of their users are millennials. So considering that, you'd have to first change kind of the brand of Edward Jones to reach out more to that future generation, and then you could start building it. Other apps have similar solutions. For example, Bank of America rounds up your change and can put it into your savings account, but they don't offer that investing side of it. And so we think that combining that millennial user base with the Facebook pages and having an interactive experience can bring Edward Jones into the face of those millennials that you're trying to reach.
Question on, let's stay on Acorn. Curious about how you came up with 600 million. So what are the numbers behind that? If you look at some kind of multiple of future EBITDA or cash flow? How did you come up with 600 million?
We looked at usually when we looked at a few examples of when companies were taken completely private from venture capital. BlackRock made a similar acquisition, but for a smaller amount, albeit for I think 150 million last year. And their last funding round valued them in September of 2016 around 370 million. And we considered that if they would grow at the same pace that they've been growing, because they had another funding round that same year in May, if they were growing at the same pace, it would be around 500 million. So that's why we went with the figure of 600 million to make sure that it would surpass their expectations of growth.
I have a question related to taking a step back. If you look at Edward Jones' goal of going from 15,000 offices to 22,000 or 20,000 by 2022, given the change in the demographics and the clientele, is that still the right client engagement model? Should they fundamentally rethink it, or do you think that's right?
I think in this situation, millennials are at this point 5-6 years out of starting to think about financial advisors, about investing. So at this point, we do think that it's still a good idea to go ahead with making that increase, because in this time, the need is still there for financial advisors. But we do think that, and we consider this as well going forward, that increase is not, it doesn't have to be continuous. So once they reach 20,000, we don't think that there needs to be necessarily a further expansion beyond that 20,000, considering the difference in generations.
In addition, we looked at the competitors. Charles Schwab has a product offering where you could go online, create your entire portfolio, and only have to interact with a financial advisor once, or as many as you want to for an incremental amount. So we're seeing that the industry trend is to move away from financial advisors, and a lot of the other financial advising firms have also gone that route. A lot of them, even Raymond James is saying we will never do this, and now they're actually considering having a hybrid model of that on their website. So we believe that there should be that growth, because there will still be need for financial advisors for a very long time. But we project that after 10 years, that's the industry slowly being disrupted, and Edward Jones needs to start looking at possible alternatives.
If the strength, though, is the financial advisor relationship, what do you think about social media better tied into the financial advisor versus this idea that it goes somehow to a headquarters, which is really not the model of Edward Jones empowering their individual businesses at the local level?
Thank you
So-
for your question. Do you want to answer?
Yeah, sure. So in this situation, we think that having a better social media presence, first of all, won't endanger the current clientele of Edward Jones. So looking forward, like Solomon said, about 10 years, there's no endangering of current clients. But it is building that relationship with millennials. You're looking at the content that's posted on the Edward Jones Facebook page, and it's not very interacted with. And Edward Jones is trying to reach out to the millennial generation, so they want to be where the millennials are. And millennials are on social media all the time. So building that relationship now and getting in their faces and having that contact, we think can lead to, when they do need a financial advisor, Edward Jones is who they will turn to, because they have that brand recognition.
I have a question. You talked about some of our competitors. So a lot of our competitors have account minimums in whatever that we don't at this current time. So how do you feel as millennials that would impact your investing style? So if you don't necessarily meet an account minimum, how would that affect your thought process? Like would we market this to be an account minimum that you wouldn't be able to reach,
So this is very interesting, because when we went on the website, and maybe this is just looking through information, sifting through a lot of information, it seemed like there was an account minimum, so maybe that wasn't communicated very well to us. But I think if it was if it was communicated very clearly that there isn't an account minimum, I think a lot of people find that appealing. And one thing that we did notice, it was hard to find the pricing for Edward Jones as opposed to our competitors, where we just went on the website and there was a pricing page, and we open it up and prices. So it's a very interesting dichotomy in that, there's so much information being thrown at us, and if the information was like right in my face, I think I'd just be like, oh, no account minimum? Go for it.
I'm like curious, the case was introduced with the phrase, as the populations of the United States and Canada have become more racially, ethnically, and internationally diverse, blah, blah, blah. Why did you discount strategies that would help us attract ethnically, internationally, racially diverse?
I think
Thank you so much for the question. We realize that the trend of millennials entering into the finance market is more significant and actually requires more attention than actually, because if you look at some people who do their current swiping, buying things, it applies to everyone. And everyone who is in the United States is actually interested in investing. So we casting that net of ACO is a way of capturing everyone in by lowering the level at the lowest possible. Imagine investing with changes. Like this couple of cents you put in your pocket every day. It's something that is the lowest bar we could find. And we think that will engulf everyone, including all the diverse minority groups and different races.
if I may add on to that, the second part of our two-pronged solution, I would call it, Facebook is incredibly, you can do incredible targeting at this point with ads, for example. That's why we think building social media is incredibly important, because it's a way that you can reach out to very specific demographics. So we're past the point where you just reach out to people in the St. Louis, Missouri area. You can target Hispanics who have a housemate who are under the age of 35, and there's like 3 million of those available on Facebook. And Facebook tells you exactly how to target those, and you can set exactly the demographics that you want. So we think increasing the social media presence will help to target those increasingly diverse demographics.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I think we also looked at the wealth transfer bit. So we wondered, like, if your parent has an account with Edward Jones, if they transfer money to you, are you likely to switch? Probably not. And we didn't really have a lot of data for that, but what is the likelihood of switching from that account? So there's that. There's the base demographic kind of staying the same over time. And then when you cast a wider socioeconomic net, that then creates more diverse entrants. And we would have loved to expand on diversity programs. That could possibly be an option, but we wanted to focus on one solution that really cast the net to include a lot of different socioeconomic groups.
Go ahead.
It's a big investment to buy, and this is a partnership. How do you convince these partners that may not be there 10 years from now that this is something they should put their money in today for future partners to benefit from?
Okay, this was one of the most difficult things for us, and the reason we kind of tapped into cash flows instead of we really tapped into cash flows because we felt like that's the one way we could make sure that we're minimizing the risk for current partners, and we looked at securities.
Your time is up.
Okay.